Welcome, boys and girls, children of all ages. Appreciate you guys being on. The reason for these calls, and I am Andrew David. I'm with Blake Newbar's high performance calls here with the partner program. The purpose of these is to help you understand better why you do things, how to do it better, and then how to get where you're looking to go, wherever in the hell that is. So there's the question. Why do we do what we do? Why do we work? Why do we go to school? Why do we work on this? Why do we build relationships? What's happening? Well, now at this point, it's been almost 80 years ago. In the early 1940s, there was a gentleman that came around named Maslow. Okay. Has anybody heard of that name, Maslow? Good. Some of you have. Awesome. If you have, but maybe it's been a while, go back and study a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about Maslow. Now, Maslow was an individual. He's a psychologist in his mid 30s, back in the early 40s, when it was the heyday of capitalism. That's what people referred to it as the time, because they had no idea what the 2000s were going to turn into. And they were looking at what was going on. Now, he was raised Orthodox Jew. He had kind of left that community and the closeness of it. And he was looking at something to help understand why people do what they do, right? And he was looking at, you typically have within this world, we have two different camps. Now, you got to remember, this is 80 years ago. We now live in a different society. There's a much greater understanding of the psychological aspects of why we do what we do because of this man's work. And this is where truly a lot of the personal development, the self-help, all of this stuff, much of it came about because of the work that he was doing, because he recognized that society, many of the larger corporations, were doing business in a way that helped take care of one side of people's needs, but neglected the other. Does that make sense to you guys? So I want to show you what's called it. They call it Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow's pyramid of needs. Now, originally this was kind of put forth in a psychological paper, and it was just a simple triangle that was drawn in. It was wrapped up with a bunch of technical speak and research paper-esque information. So it has, over the years, it's kind of transformed. It's become more and more beautiful along the way. But this is what you've got. Okay. This might be easier to kind of look at the beginning. Can everybody see my screen? Yeah. A couple of thumbs up. Good. Thank you. So it starts physiological, then safety, love, esteem, self-actualization. Now, this has it split at between esteem and self-actualization. Motivation decreases as the needs are met. So here's what I kind of want to go over. Physiological and safety, and then love, belonging. Now, we've heard a lot about when you're doing something, and think about it as a parent or as the manager. Everybody heard of the idea of the stick and the carrot, right? The stick and the carrot. If you're managing someone, you're parenting, and it's the vinegar or honey. I mean, however you want to look at it. I'm either going to beat you into doing something, like you're going to do it because of punishment, or you're going to do it because you're rewarded, right? Now, what corporations were providing as products, and oftentimes in management styles, and what you'll still see today in corporations, is a tendency to utilize much more the carrot and stick, still to this day, as opposed to starting to recognize that there's some higher levels of needs that people want fulfilled in order to feel more complete. It begins, though, with the physiological need. We all have them. And what it says on this here, what this means, motivation decreases as needs are met, right? We have deficiency needs and then being needs. Motivation decreases as needs are met. Physiological, here we go. Physiological needs: survival, air, food, drink, shelter, clothing, warmth, sex, sleep. Physiological needs. You got to put food on the table. You got to stay warm. You got to have water to drink. We need shelter. Now, thousands of years ago, this was an issue that was much harder to accomplish on a larger scale or continuously for people. There was a struggle all of the time to make sure that you had that. Do we have any farmers on here? Do we have anybody that gets up and goes and gardens their vegetables, or milks a cow, or collects eggs in order to have their breakfast? I know I've worked with a number of them. Odds are they're not on this call. They watch them on their replay because in the middle of the day, they're getting their work done. right? They're living very much more a life that contains a lot of that physiological need. Their activities are included there, right? Food, shelter, sex, warmth, sleep, that kind of stuff. Now, that's why many of us go to work, right? If I ask, why do you work? Well, I got to pay the bills. So break that down a little bit further. I go to work because through work, I'm able to buy food. Through work, I'm able to, put clothes on me. I'm able to keep a roof over my head. But we live in a world where I understand that there are some people that are homeless. I understand, especially around the world, because we have an international group here. There are many instances where it's not as easy as many of us have it. What I was talking about at the very beginning of this call, the first world problems, I was bitching and moaning last night about a steak or a water, this attraction, this thing that has nothing to do with my physiological needs, right? I can absolutely fulfill every physiological I need and never experience the day that I had yesterday. It was something totally different. And there are places in the world where people still struggle day in and day out to meet those needs, food, water, etc. And I get that. And I'm not downplaying that, but I'm also talking to a group of people who middle of the day are able to hop on the internet, right? Who have electricity enough and are able to get Wi-Fi and sit down and listen and talk. And I know you guys are looking at this. So why do we work? Now, I've talked with a lot of people, and when we look at the goals that we set, there's a lot of times where we talk about a bigger house or a nicer vehicle or paying off these debts. And a lot of the debts were assumed in order to take care of the physiological needs, because sometimes those needs are health, medical, it's education, and we do the education in order to get a better job, right? So I want you to think about your life. And when we're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs here, how much of your life has been spent there? Now, Maslow was fighting against two camps, though. We had the group that was kind of just saying that that's what life was really all about, and that's all that really mattered is, you wake up every day and you put bread on the table, you do what you need to do. And then you have this other side that was all about the spiritual, right? The mental, the emotional. And without even getting into the metaphysical side of it, you can talk about the soul and the spirit in all of these other things, right? It's wanting to be able to play the music because that's more fulfilling, or just serve other people because that's more fulfilling, or live a life of complete servitude without having to take care of the physical needs. Well, you can't have balance on either extreme. So looking at your life, where have you lived, and what has kept you from kind of creating a foundation that's strong, and then being able to build on that and increase upon, raise your level of need and why you're doing something. Okay. So in the hierarchy here, what he's talking about, so we get the physiological needs and we get into safety. People want to experience order, predictability, and control in their lives, right? And this is where I'm at right now. Okay. This is again from Maslow. So this is why so many people enjoy a job where they know they can show up 9 to 5, 9 to 7, whatever it is. You can predict a certain amount of work, what type of work. I want you to give me a set of instructions. I want to know that I can do this and I can go about doing, and I know if I go and I act in this way, these things are going to happen. If someone else breaks those laws, then this is going to be, the result. That's where police and schools and businesses, that's why all of that is set up the way it is, because that's what we're comfortable with. That's what we want, right? So physiological needs and safety. Now the love and belongingness. So this is the human emotional need for interpersonal relationships, affiliating, connectedness, being a part of a group, friendship, intimacy, trust, and acceptance, receiving and giving affection and love. It's why, now this is where, in my opinion, again, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not, trained in this to a high extent. This is me sharing my opinions. And so do your own research, find your own professional if you feel you need this help. But this is part of this, when we look at this here, physiological safety, love, and being, before we get into the self-esteem and the self-actualization, before we build on the esteem, whether it's our own esteem or the esteem that we get from others, this love and belonging, because it is such a basic need. there is a lot of times, this is why certain relationships end up in that codependency realm. It's why certain relationships become toxic, is because we're using this before we've worked on ourselves enough, in my opinion. Oftentimes, that's what I've seen. It's some of what I've lived, where certain relationships weren't as beneficial or healthy as they could have been simply because I wasn't taking care of the other things. Now, even within his pyramid, when you look at, if you study a little bit about Maslow at the beginning of when he first did this, and then years later when he started talking about it, this is essentially the hierarchy. But he talked about how there were no immutable laws that couldn't be switched or changed. And it wasn't something that 100% of my needs physiologically had to be met before I did anything else. It's like every single thing had to be met. We still wanted a little bit of safety. You start to feel a little bit of that love and belonging. And if one is lacking in some of the others, sometimes you have this overflow where, how many times have we heard, a lot of times people get into a relationship and they're trying to fill a hole, a void from something else that was missing, right? Well, maybe I don't have as much money as I'd like to have, but at least I have the love of those around me. And we start to transfer some of those needs and move them up and down. Okay, so being able to strengthen yourself in that regard, though, and have relationships like we talked about last week that are loving, where there is trust involved, where there's support and growth, as opposed to something that can stifle you, can become important. Now, the esteem needs, this is that balance. So we have self-worth and accomplishment and respect. You have esteem for oneself. So dignity, achievement, mastery, and independence. And then the desire for reputation and respect from others. So I'm getting help, and actually I'm getting esteem from, I'm proven to myself. And then there is proving to others, right? I've heard a lot of times, because, and I've talked about it, when I first started doing some of the stuff I did online, some of it was, well, I got to show this person and this person that I can do it. They told me I couldn't. They told me I wouldn't. They told me I wasn't capable of it. Well, damn it, I'm going to show them. Okay. Honestly, how many of you guys have ever done something in your life simply to show someone else that you could? Right? You didn't quit because they said, look, you're just going to quit anyway. And you said, I'm too stubborn to do that. I'm going to prove you wrong. Right? The thing is what we want to do, and it happens. And that's, so there's nothing inherently wrong with allowing a little bit of esteem from others to influence your actions. But at some point that runs out. And then you step up to, hopefully we get to this point of self-actualization. So how many of you guys have ever heard that saying, self-actualization, right? It's essentially what he's speaking about is becoming your best self, becoming who you need to be, what you're capable of, your potential, and living up to that. And that's one of the things I talk about all of the time, guys, is recognizing that. So instead of me diving real deep into self-actualization, what I want you guys to do today, quick homework assignment, should take a few minutes. Look up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Read an article or watch a video on YouTube. There's a ton of stuff out there. And then I want you to sit down and I want you to think and be honest with yourself. Are you living a life where you've got a foundation where these basic things are taken care of, and I'm pushing towards what Russell Brunson says is impact over income? Like I'm looking to get there with the recognition that I still have to take care. I still got to put food in the cupboards, right? We talk about that sometimes. I can't feed you from my cupboards if they're empty. Same thing happens spiritually. If I'm looking to seriously create an impact elsewhere, I need to make sure that I'm working on myself as well. Look at where you're at, how much time you've spent. Now, on this scale, some of you, some of us have spent all of our time only thinking about, because this isn't just where your actions are, this is where your thoughts are as well. So is it always based on paying that next bill or getting things, paid or earning that next dollar? And the work then accompanies that, right? Your thoughts lead to your habits lead to your actions. Or are you on the flip side, where all you concern yourself with is the spiritual to the point of the detriment of other things in your life. Obviously, if you've heard me at any point, you know that I'm all in favor of the spiritual and growing yourself, your heart, your mind, your spirit, your soul, growing that, taking care of your body, this vessel that we carry our spirits in. But then that also includes that bottom tier of the hierarchy of needs and all of these things, right? I've got to make sure I can pay the bills. I can have my house. I can put food on the table and I can take care of things. How are you balancing things out? And where is it you need to concentrate and work on? Think about it a little bit, guys. That's the homework for today. It's really simple. Look up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, study it some, watch one of the videos on YouTube, read an article, whatever you want to do, and then sit and look at that triangle and say, where am I and what do I need to do to improve and grow? All of you are in the process of growth. You are here because you're willing to grow. I want to help you continue to direct that towards good, towards your potential, and to becoming the absolute best that you can, because you guys are capable of amazing things. Love you much. Grateful to have you guys here as always. So find a way to rise up, rise from the ashes, fly like the phoenixes that you are. Go out and be phenomenal and have an amazing day. Appreciate you guys.